Tu Youyou was born on December 30th, 1930 in Ningbo, Zhejiang, one of 5 children in a middle-class family that prized both classical literature and the new Republican-era textbooks on experimental biology. Childhood tuberculosis interrupted her schooling for 2 years. Convalescence in a seaside sanatorium left her fascinated by the fine boundary between life and death and convinced her that medicine, not the civil service career her father imagined, would best serve both curiosity and country. In 1951, she entered the Beijing Medical College's newly founded School of Pharmacy, where Soviet chemists lectured in accented Mandarin about alkaloid extraction, while professors trained in pre-war Nanjing still quoted Materia Medica classics. That intellectual bifurcation between modern pharmacology and traditional Chinese remedies would define her career. After graduation, Tu joined the Institute of Chinese Materia Medica at the Academy of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Throughout the 1950s, she mapped the phytochemistry of astragalus and scutellaria, but remained junior to male colleagues who held doctoral titles from Moscow or Berlin. In May 1967, amid China's escalating involvement in the Vietnam War, Mao Zedong authorized the secret 523 Project, a crash program to find a new antimalarial drug for troops fighting Plasmodium falciparum in the jungles of Hainan and northern Vietnam, where chloroquine resistance had rendered standard therapies useless. Tu, then 36 and still without a graduate degree, was appointed head of Group 1, tasked with screening traditional remedies for rapid, high-efficacy antimalarial activity. Her team sifted through more than 2,000 ancient prescriptions, compiling what amounted to an ethnobotanical database decades before the term became common. Dicroa febrifuga and artemisia ranked high in anecdotal fever cures, but early water-boiled extracts killed mice through toxicity or failed to clear parasites in infected ducklings. Tu revisited Guhong's 4th century text emergency prescriptions kept up one sleeve, noticing the instruction to take a handful of qinghao, soak in 2 sheng of water, wring out the juice and drink. The verb soak, rather than boil, suggested heat label actives. She replaced decoction with a room temperature ethyl ether extraction, obtaining a pale crystalline residue that, when administered to mice, knocked parasitemia down by 100% in 24 hours without causing tremors or weight loss. In the chaos of the Cultural Revolution, clinical trials were politically risky. Hospitals were under Red Guard supervision, and any misstep could be denounced as counter-revolutionary malpractice. Tu volunteered to test the extract, later code-named Compound 191, on herself and 2 colleagues. Mild lightheadedness aside, no adverse effects appeared. By 1972, the team had refined the active molecule, C5H22O5, naming it qinghao, artemisinin in English literature that would emerge years later. Yield remained low until Tu switched to Artemisia annua source from Sichuan's elevated terraces, whose cooler nights favored a chemotype with double the per-leaf artemisinin content. Using silica gel chromatography and crystallization from petroleum ether, she achieved purity above 98% and documented its peroxide bridge. The structural motif essential to its schizonocidal action in parasite food vacuoles. Simultaneously, she designed derivatives to improve solubility and bioavailability. Dihydroartemisinin, artesunate, and artemisinin each began as handwritten reaction schemes in her lab notebook, scaled up in 100-liter enamel reactors commandeered from pesticide factories. Hamster toxicity tests, rhesus monkey trials on Hainan Island, and finally field treatment of 2,000 Vietnamese and Chinese soldiers yielded cure rates above 95%, with recrudescence only in cases of subtherapeutic dosing. Yet secrecy orders meant Tu's name never appeared in the 1977 internal report that summarized these results. Authorship was attributed to Team 523. China's reform era finally allowed publication. In 1979, Tu presented at the WHO's Scientific Working Group meeting in Beijing, astonishing Western malariologists who doubted that any sesquiterpene could outperform quinine derivatives. Western analytical chemistry confirmed the peroxide mechanism. Iron-rich heme released by parasite hemoglobin digestion activated artemisinin's endoperoxide bond, spawning free radicals that damage parasitic membranes. In the 1980s, Vietnamese hospitals tested artesunate suppositories that saved comatose children when quinine injections failed, and by 1998, who declared artemisinin-based combination therapies, ACTs, the global gold standard. Tu stayed at the academy, earning only a modest professor salary while dengue, SARS, and HIV research eclipsed malaria and Chinese funding priorities. She refused offers from multinational drug companies, arguing that key patents should remain in the public domain to lower prices for endemic regions. In 2011, long after partial recognition via the 2011 Lasker-DeBakey Award, she was still checking HPLC traces of new semisynthetic analogs. At age 84, she shared the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for discoveries concerning a novel therapy against malaria, becoming the first mainland Chinese laureate of any scientific Nobel. Critics note that other 523 scientists, such as pharmacologist Li Guoqiao, perform pivotal clinical deployments, yet share no Nobel credit. Tu herself acknowledges the collective nature of the project, though she alone bridged classical texts, extraction chemistry, and preclinical validation. Some ethicists point to self-experimentation under opaque political pressure, but Tu argues that risk assumed voluntarily short-circuited bureaucratic paralysis that could have cost thousands of soldiers' lives. Tu Youyou's achievement resonates beyond malaria pharmacotherapy. It demonstrates that traditional knowledge, when interrogated with experimental rigor, can shorten drug discovery pipelines that typically consume billions in decades. It also highlights a geopolitical irony. A remedy extracted under Maoist autarky became essential to global health precisely as neoliberal supply chains sought cheap API production in Chinese factories. Today, partial artemisinin resistance emerging in the greater Mekong subregion drives research into triple-drug ACTs and next-generation peroxide scaffolds, many pursued by labs staffed with Tu's academic descendants. She often quotes an aphorism from Shenongbin Xiaojing: "Medicine is of noble intent, saving the sick without bias." In her Beijing apartment, still within bicycle distance of the former Rumiantsev Library, where she first pored over pharmacognosy indices, Tu tend a small planter of qinghao. Each spring she crushes a leaf, inhales the bittersweet scent, and reminds visiting graduate students that scientific revolutions can sprout from overlooked herbs provided one reads ancient verbs carefully and trusts data over dogma. Her life thus bridges dynastic materia medica and 21st century molecular biology, proving that curiosity disciplined by exactitude can, even under austere conditions, rewrite the medical destiny of millions.